Hello, everyone. Welcome to our comprehensive webinar on enhancing your communication skills. So we'll wait for 30 seconds until people can join us. So I will start now. I will first start with presenting my colleagues. So today we have Tasnim, Yasmin, Nisrin, and me, Jumana. We're all majoring in communication studies, and we have Selwa, majoring in business and taking communication as a minor. So, in this video, we will explore key phases of communication from enhancing collaboration and building positive relationship to mastering the art of active listening. So let's dive in and discover how these essential skills can empower you to become a more effective and empathetic communicator. So first, I will start with by explaining the mindful communication and its three main aspects. So, mindful communication is a picture that involves being consciously aware of the present moment and free of judgment when communicating with others. And there are three key aspects of mindful communication: recognizing personal biases, practicing empathy, and intergender communication. I will start with the first point: recognizing personal bias. So, personal bias is an individual's way of viewing the world around them, which is largely shaped by their conditioning. So, they can lead to discrimination, poor decision making, and unrealistic or negative perspectives, among other things. So, mindfulness can help reduce biases by bringing awareness to the way we think and make decisions. I will be sharing with you some steps to reduce personal biases with mindfulness. So, first, recognize that we all have personal biases and that this does not make us bad. By acknowledging that everyone, including oneself, has biases is a crucial first step. It helps create a non-judgmental awareness that biases are a part of human cognitions. Secondly, reflect on some of the biases that you hold. Take time to consider your own biases, both explicit and implicit. Reflect on where these biases might have come from and how they may influence your perceptions and interactions. Practice responding rather than reacting. When you encounter situations that trigger biases, pause and consciously choose how to respond in a way that aligns with your values. First of all, the way that you listen and speak. Pay attention to your communication patterns. Engage with what others are saying without interrupting or immediately forming judgments. So choose your words carefully to communicate with empathy and respect. Um, the final point is try to open the new ideas and perspective with curiosity. Approach them with an open, curious mind. Be willing to challenge your own biases by seeking out diverse viewpoints and learning from others with different life experience. Um, so now I'll move to my second point, practicing empathy. So in the workplace, practicing mindful communication and empathy can help foster a positive work environment and build stronger relationship with coworkers. It involves being present and attentive during conversation, listening actively, and responding truthfully. So here are some tips for practicing mindful communication and empathy in the workplace. First, listen actively. When communicating with coworkers, make sure to give them your full attention. Listen to what they have to say without interrupting or judging them. This will help you understand their perspective better and build trust. Second, be aware of your own biases. As I said before, we all have our own biases and assumptions that can affect how we communicate with others. So, being aware of these biases can help us avoid misunderstanding and communicate more effectively. Thirdly, practice empathy. Try to put yourself in your coworkers' shoes and understand their perspective. This can help you build stronger relationship with them and create a more positive work environment. Be respectful. Always treat your coworkers with respect, even if you disagree with them. Avoid making assumptions or judgments about them based on their personal background or belief. So, by practicing mindful communication and empathy in the workplace, you can create a more positive work environment, build stronger relationship with your coworkers, and improve your overall job satisfactions. Now, going to my final point, intergender communication. So, intergender communication refers to communication that occurs between individuals of different genders or sexes. It involves interactions and exchange of information, ideas, and messages between people who identify with different gender identities or belong to different sexes, which can include male, female, non binary, transgender, and other gender identities. So, intergender communication is an important aspect of interpersonal communication and can practically relevant in contexts such as workplaces, educational settings, healthcare, and everyday social interactions. So, effective intergender communication contributes to respectful and harmonious relationship among individuals of diverse gender identities and expressions. So, in order to become more mindful in your communication, start by being more aware of your thoughts and feelings when communicating with others. Practice active listening by paying attention to what the other person is saying without interrupting or judging them. And try to be more empathetic by putting yourself in the other person's shoes and understanding their perspective. So now let's move on to the next point with Yasmin Daoudi in the non-verbal communication. So, hello, Yasmin.
Thank you, Jumana.
The floor is yours.
Now we're going to be diving into the aspect of nonverbal communication. So we're going to start off by discussing active listening. First of all, active listening is a communication skill that involves actively focusing on and fully engaging with a speaker during a conversation. This goes beyond simply hearing words. It involves making a conscious effort to understand the speaker's message, feelings, and perspectives. Active listening is very essential for an effective communication and building strong relationships, whether it's personal or professional. Here, as you can see, we have some key principles and techniques of active listening. We're going to start off by the first one, which is give your full attention. What this means is that when you're actively listening, you should give the speaker your undivided attention. This goes by eliminating distractions, putting away your phone, maintaining eye contact, which is an important one, and we're going to discuss all of this later. And this basically shows that you are genuinely interested. Second of all, we have show empathy. This means try to understand the speaker's feelings and emotions. You can do this by acknowledging their emotions and expressing empathy through your nonverbal cues and verbal responses. Next, we have use verbal cues. You do this by encouraging the speaker to continue by using verbal cues such as nodding, saying I see or I understand. For example, when as students, I guess we relate to this, when the professor is talking about like a lesson or a lecture or something, we do this by nodding, saying I see or I understand, asking open questions to clarify and go deeper into their thoughts. Four, we have paraphrase and summarize. Periodically rephrase or summarize what the speaker has said to confirm your understanding and show that you are actively engaged in the conversation. Five, we have avoid interrupting. This goes by allowing the speaker to finish their thoughts before responding. Interrupting can disturb and disrupt the flow of the conversation and make the speaker feel unheard. Finally, we have maintain nonverbal communication. We have nonverbal cues such as facial expressions, body language, gestures. These play a crucial role in active listening. Maintain all open and welcoming body language, avoid crossing your arms, and use appropriate facial expressions to convey your engagement and understanding. Next, we're going to discuss nonverbal communication. So we're going to start off by a definition. Nonverbal communication refers to the transmission of information and messages through means other spoken or written words. This includes, as we're going to discuss again, body language, facial expressions, gestures, eye contact, posture. These play a significant role in human interaction and can convey emotions, intentions, and attitudes. Next, we're going to discuss how helpful are nonverbal cues. We have three main points. The first one is nonverbal cues can reveal hidden messages. So sometimes what people say verbally might not align with their nonverbal cues. Active listening involves paying attention to these cues to gain a deeper understanding of the speaker's true feelings or concerns. Second of all, we have nonverbal cues affect the listener. So, as an active listener, your nonverbal cues can also influence the speaker. Again, maintaining eye contact, nodding in agreement, and using positive body language can make the speaker feel more valued and heard. And then finally, we have nonverbal cues provide context. So, nonverbal cues can provide context for the spoken words. For example, a speaker's tone of voice, facial expressions, and posture can convey whether they're excited, upset, or uncertain, which helps you interpret their message more accurately. Moving to our next point, we have the significance of nonverbal communication. So, nonverbal communication plays a significant role in our daily life, often more than we realize. So, here we have few key points to consider. One, it's everywhere. We use nonverbal cues all the time, consciously and unconsciously, from facial expressions to body language. It's a part of our everyday interaction. It enhances verbal communication. Nonverbal cues, they complement our spoken words, which makes our messages more impactful and clear. Then we have emotional expressiveness. Nonverbal cues, such as facial expressions, they can convey emotions more powerfully than words alone. And then finally, we have culture and context. By understanding nonverbal communication, this helps us navigate cultural differences, and interpret situations correctly. Next, we have types of nonverbal communication. So let's take a closer look at some types of nonverbal communication, starting off with facial expressions. Our faces are incredibly expressive. We have smiles, frowns, raised eyebrows, squints. These can say a lot about our feelings. Then we have gestures, hand movements, pointing, waving, or even the way we use our fingers. They can convey a wealth of information. Posture and body language. This includes the way we stand or sit, our posture, or even our gestures with our whole body that can communicate a lot about our confidence, openness, or on the other hand, discomfort. Eye contact. As I said earlier, eye contact is a big one. The eyes are often called the windows to the soul. Eye contact can convey sincerity, interest, or deception. Next, we have proxemics. This relates to personal space and how close or far we stand from each other. So this can either signal intimacy or personal boundaries or discomfort, on the other hand. And then finally, we have tone of voice. So besides spoken words, the way we speak, including pitch, volume, speed, carries a lot of meaning. And just a little conclusion about what I just talked about, including nonverbal communication. It's a powerful and often underestimated tool for conveying information and building connections. So whether in our personal lives or in business, understanding and using nonverbal cues effectively can make a significant difference in our interactions. So, the next time you find yourself in a conversation, just remember that words are just one part of the story. Pay attention to the unspoken language, and you're going to be amazed at the richness it adds to the communications. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin, for your insights. So let's move on to the computer-mediated communication. Sorry, my bad. Let's move on to the feedback with Nisreen. Hello, Nisreen.
Hello.
The floor is yours.
So in my part, I will be talking about assertive communication. So employing assertive communication. So we have passive, which is submissive, and aggressive dominant communication. Styles are balanced in assertive communication. It involves expressing your demands and views while remaining mindful of other people's rights and boundaries. It also promotes open and honest dialogue for a better understanding. So how do we employ assertive communications? There are many steps. First of all, using the I statement. So, for example, when you express your thoughts and feelings, you use I, such as I feel or I need. This takes ownership of your emotions and avoids blaming others. Next, you maintain eye contact. When appropriate, maintain eye contact to show confidence and sincerity. Also, use a calm and tone body language. So, you need to speak calmly and maintain open, non threatening body language to avoid any aggressive gestures or a defensive posture. Next up, you have to practice active listening. So listen very attentively to what the other person has to say and respond to them without interrupting them, by the way, and show empathy and understanding. And finally, stay calm and patient. Assertive communication does not always lead to immediate resolution, so you have to stay patient and open to further discussion. So when do we use assertive communication? So Next up, we use it when expressing our feelings. So, for example, when you need to express your emotions, whether positive or negative, for example, when you're happy, sad, angry, or frustrated. When making requests, it's appropriate to be assertive when you want to make a request or ask for something. Clearly state what you need or want while considering the other person's perspective. And also set boundaries. Assertive communication is very essential for setting and maintaining personal boundaries. So let others know what behaviors are acceptable and what is not acceptable to you. And finally, resolving conflicts. So when conflicts arise, assertive communication is very helpful and can really help you express your concerns, listen to the other person's perspective, and work towards a mutually satisfactory solution. So when it comes to giving and receiving feedback, in the next slide, it's important to use assertive communication when providing constructive feedback or receiving it from others. So when it comes to giving constructive feedback, you need to be specific and objective. So clearly state the specific behavior or situation that you want to address and avoid making a generalized or judgmental statements. Also focus on behavior and not personality. So critic actions and behaviors, not the other person's character. Avoid making personal attacks about their life or their personality or using derogatory language. And also offer solutions and suggestions. So provide constructive listening and constructive judgment. And instead of saying, you always do this, you always do that, this is what's wrong, you need to say, I've noticed this behavior several times and I am not satisfied with that. And also encourage dialogue, encourage the person to share their perspectives and feelings towards the situation, be open to a two-way conversation and listen actively. It doesn't need to be just you talking all the time. When it comes to receiving constructive criticism, stay open-minded, always have an open mind, approach feedback with an open mind, and be willing to learn and grow. Remember that feedback is an opportunity for improvement. Also, ask for clarification. If the feedback is unclear, for example, or vague, and you didn't really get it 100%, then ask for specific examples or suggestions to better understanding the issue. And also avoid defensiveness. This one is really important. Avoid becoming defensive whenever someone is giving you feedback or criticism, and don't argue back. Take a moment to process the feedback before responding and think very clearly before saying something that could be wrong. And also express gratitude. Thank the person for their feedback because they were honest with you and told you what they were thinking. So, regardless of it being positive or negative, expressing gratitude is very important and it encourages the other person to be open for more communication in the future. Also, follow up. After receiving the feedback, follow up with the person to update them on your progress or changes made based on their input. And finally, maintain a growth mindset. So, embrace a growth mindset, believing that you can develop and improve into a better person with effort and learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Nesrine.
Thank you, Nisreen, for your insights and explanation. Now we'll move on to computer-mediated communication with Salwa. Hello, Salwa.
Hello.
Your mic, please.
Yeah. Hello. Okay, so for my part, we're going to see how to apply conscious communication into computer-mediated tools. Okay, so conscious communication when using computer is very important because it fosters deeper connections, it reduces misunderstanding, and it promotes positive relationships. So how do we apply conscious communication actually into computer-based tools? We have some tips that we're going to see. Okay, so first of all, we have tips related to writing. When writing a message through the computer, you need to think before you type. Because it's very important to take a moment and gather your thoughts before you respond to a message or you post online. You need to also be clear and concise about your message. Choose the right medium, whether it's a phone call or an email or a conference. Use positive language. Don't focus only on the problems. Try to solve whatever you can, and avoid caps because capital letters means shouting, means very angry person. So you don't want to use caps when writing a message. Last, read and edit your message before you send it. Obviously, you can never be too sure about your words. You need to read your message and look for errors before you send it. Next, we have tips related to interpersonal relations. First of all, you need to mind your tone. You can't speak or write a message with whatever tone that comes to your mind. You need to respect, for example, elderly people or your hierarchy. Next, you need to respect also privacy. You can't share personal information. You can't ask too personal information. When you're in a professional context, you need to respect the privacy of the people. Be aware of time zones. When you're talking, for example, or you're working with international people, you need to be aware of time zones in order not to send your message in an inconvenient time. You also need to practice empathy and not judge, for example, before you ask for explanation and the perspective of the person you're talking to. And thus, you need to avoid overreacting. If you receive a message that you don't like, you need to take a step back before responding. Sometimes clarifying questions can lead to a calm response and not being defensive in a situation. Last, we have used disclaimers if necessary. Disclaimers obviously can avoid you to be misunderstood, or if a person is sensitive in nature, you need to consider using disclaimers or qualifiers to clarify your intention. Okay, next. These are some uncommon tips that can also help to apply conscious communication into computer. First of all, you need to use filters and notifications in order not to be overwhelmed with too many messages or emails that you receive. And be mindful of security. Also, you need to take care of your passwords, change them from time to time, and disconnect when needed. For example, if you feel too overwhelmed with your messages, with your emails, if you feel that you're not effective in your work, you can disconnect from time to time from your computer, from your media, from your socials, and come back much better. Practice empathy. I think we already talked about empathy. It's very important to be empathic and not judge a person or a message before understanding the other person's perspective. Next. Okay, now we're gonna address distractions and other barriers to communication in the workplace. So there's two types of distractions and barriers. There's two types how we can address them. First of all, we need to identify common distractions. When we're in a workplace or in a professional context, we need to conduct surveys, for example, to our employees or to our colleagues in order to identify common distractions that we face. Next, we need to common distractions may include, for example, noisy workplaces, excessive emails, or constant interruptions. We also need to create a quiet workspace because quiet zones provide noise canceling headphones, for example, or just quiet spaces where employees can concentrate on their tasks. And this way, we are encouraging them to use spaces when they need to focus on important work. Okay. So last, we're going to see types of noises that disrupt the communication when we are communicating through computer. So first of all, we have physical noise. Physical noise can mean, for example, loud music, construction noise, traffic sounds. So any actual noise that disturbs communication. For example, when we're on a phone call, or in a webinar, for example, like now, or in a conference call, we need to be mindful of these noises. Semantic noise is a different meaning for words or phrases. For example, when we speak different language, or when we are from a different, for example, job or profession, we can have different meanings for the same words. So this way, for this, we need to avoid talking in jargon or in language that's only specific to a profession or to a region. Psychological noise means mental or emotional factors that can influence our communication through computer. For example, some people may not be very apt on talking on handling, for example, disruptions or misunderstandings. So we need to be mindful of this. Next, we have cultural noise. This is obvious. Differences in cultural backgrounds obviously mean differences in ways of communication. So we also need to be mindful of this. Last, we have technological noise, which is the most common, which can include drop calls, poor internet connections, or software glitches. Obviously, these impact computer mediated communication. So we need to take care of these before we enter a communication or before we enter talking with a person through the computer. So I think that's it for me. Thank you for listening, guys.
Thank you, Selva, for your insight. Now let's move on to growth and development with Tasnim. Hello, Tasnim.
Hello, thank you. So, after going over the previous points on conscious communication, we're going to focus on how to integrate into the workplace. So, to maintain integrity, engage in valuable collaboration, and enhance productivity and performance, there are some things that must be done from both the corporation side and the employees. So, next, we'll see what the companies can do. Companies can integrate employees into their workplace using the following strategies, starting by adopting new technologies. As previously said in the computer-mediated communication, it is very important to implement modern communication tools to facilitate seamless interactions. Also, it's important to introduce platforms that promote collaboration and the share of resources, and providing training sessions to ensure everyone is comfortable using the technologies. Especially, we see right now a lot of youngsters are entering the workforce, and it may be more it may be more comfortable for them to interact with their superiors via email or via Teams chat rather than just go into their offices and knock in. It's also very important to use empowering top-down communication. That means it's very important to give power to the employees by establishing regular feedback sessions and receiving and providing the feedback to the others. We can have managers praising their employees for their accomplishments and also giving tips. We should also promote a culture where constructive criticism is welcome and it's an avenue for growth. So we are here to give praise, but also to give criticism, to give them tips on how to improve. It's very important to have a balance for both. We also need to ensure open communication channels for employees to voice concerns and suggestions by having a good HR office and listen openly to the employees' communication. It's also very important to encourage continuous learning. And by that, we mean offering in-house training sessions and workshops to upskill employees, provide access to online courses and resources relevant to their roles in the company. Also, we should encourage them to attend seminars and conferences and also provide them financial or time of support when needed. The most important one here is organizing team building activities. So scheduling regular team outings or activities to foster camaraderie can help promote interdepartmental collaborations, but also help the new recruits find themselves more at ease around the previous employees, so that they can be in more relaxed setting and also be able to collaborate with them and work with them on different projects. For what new recruits can do, which is our focus today, is the use of the available resources. So they need to familiarize themselves with the tools and platforms provided. They also need to review onboarding material and any internal documentation as in archives and such, so they can acquire the information needed and the history of the company to better adapt. Also, they also need to ask clarifying questions. So a lot of new recruits are afraid of asking clarifying questions because they see this as a sort of incompetence. While actually asking questions can be very, very useful for implementing what needs to be done in the workplace. So engaging with colleagues and supervisors to ensure a clear understanding of responsibilities and expectations is very crucial. Next, they need to pursue knowledge outside of the work hours. So outside of the working hours, they need to dedicate some personal time to learn more about the industry or the specific job skills. We have many students here that graduate from the business school and end up working for companies that deal with chemicals or perfumes. And so they have their knowledge, their academic knowledge that's based in business and in management, but yet they're working with textiles, with chemicals, and they need to look more into the jargon of the industry to better adapt and provide the right service. So they can do that by using online platforms, also webinars, and asking their workplace again. They also can do this by engaging and observe the activity around them. So participating in team meetings, brainstorming sessions, and social events. Also paying attention to how colleagues they interact and communicate between them. And one important thing, and that can be very useful for the long run, is to seek mentorship or buddy up with a longer-standing employee for guidance and insights into the company norms and the industry norms. So next, we're going to see that a constant way of asking questions and clarification is the 5 W's approach. So as we said, a lot of new recruits fear asking questions, thinking this could be a sign of incompetence. However, it may be more beneficial to ask questions than mess up and give a bad impression on the first day. So the 5 W's can be divided as such. Who is about knowing who are the individuals involved and giving context to the situation. What is about the specific actions or events, and the when is about setting a time frame, a good deadline, and understanding the sequence process of the project. Where is about the determination of the location or the platform, and why is all about the motivation and purpose behind it. So next, we practice with this small case study. We're gonna give you 2 minutes to think of questions regarding of this case. So to make it brief, Nada is a recent SBA graduate, so she has been majoring in business, and she went on is working for a marketing company. For her first case, gives her a document where there's a campaign for a bookstore, a very famous bookstore. Now, some details are missing. So, for instance, we can see that the target audience is described as millennials and not a specific subgroup. We also have the moderate budget, which gives a deadline gives a deadline for the last week of October. There's also a focus on social platforms, but it doesn't specify which platforms to use. And also, we can see that the store has opened new locations, but we have no idea about those locations. So I want you to think about 2 or 1 question that you can ask to understand better what the case study is giving you. It could be as simple as focusing on the target audience or on the moderate budget. It could be focusing on the deadline. It could be focusing on the platform.
So yes, Tasnim. So now we'll move on to the question. We're waiting for your questions.
Next. So a few examples to apply this case study is knowing exactly who the target audience is. So, for example, we have millennials, but millennials, they range from age 27 to age 42, and we're not sure about their wants and needs. For example, the needs of a 27-year-old who just entered the workplace are different from the needs of a 42-year-old who is already settled and, for example, may prefer paperback books, or the 27-year-old may prefer a digital version. So it's very important to know who is exactly our target audience to provide the necessary service. Next. So regarding what we have moderate budget. It's mentioned in documents, but moderate is a very subjective word. So we need to understand exactly the number that is allocated for this campaign to not go over budget. Next. So, since the store is opening new locations, we should ask, where are those locations? Is it a rich neighborhood? Is it a more impoverished neighborhood? We need to understand and know where we are going to prioritize the commercials and to put them in the neighborhood, the neighboring routes as well. Next. So, now about the why. It's the final step. It's knowing why we targeted someone. It's knowing why we chose exactly the specific location. It's all about the purpose and the motivation behind. This is very crucial to understand what kind of research we can do and to give a really precise context to the team working on the project. So, to conclude, so by emphasizing both sustainable integration and valuable collaborations, companies can provide a great environment for the employees to work together, come together, and give extremely good results. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Tasnim, for your insights. Now we'll move on to the Q&A session. So we're waiting for you guys to answer some questions. Yes. We already have few questions. So this question is for how do I know if my criticism or the things that I do are constructive to the other person? So this question's I think it's for Nisrin.
How do I know if my criticism or the things I do are constructive to the other person? So, the thing that you need to know about constructive. My bad, my mic was off. How do I know if my criticism is constructive? So, what you need to know about constructive criticism is that it focuses on specific actions and behaviors and offers suggestions for improvements. And it aims to help you grow and learn as a person. So, be specific, be helpful, and especially you need to be respectful and make sure your criticism is aimed at improvement and make the other person feel like they need to improve themselves and become better, since it's meant to help the person learn and grow. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Nisreen, for your answer. There's another question. My question is for Yasmin. How does body language impact communication in a professional setting? Thank you. Yasmin?
This is a good question. So, in a professional setting, body language serves as a powerful communicator, like nonverbal communicator. It influences many aspects. For instance, it can convey confidence and competence through good posture and, for example, a firm handshake. While on the other hand, active listening, like nodding and maintaining an open body language, it can show engagement and interest in conversations. We also have trust, credibility, and emotional expression. They're often like communicated through facial expressions and movements, which shapes how colleagues and clients perceive us. So I guess just using effective body language, it can aid in conflict resolution and demonstrates leadership. So overall, just the awareness and control of the body language, it can impact one's career and relationships. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. So there's another question for why is it even important to integrate into the workplace? Tasnim, I think this is for you.
So to make it simple, in a workplace environment, there are two types of people. So the dominant and the resistant, and it basically comes to the culture of the organization. So the organization has a culture, and if you are able to integrate that culture, it either makes you a dominant or a resistant. The thing about why integration is so important is that even if you are part of the resistant group, you are probably unable to collaborate with the others and come up with great solutions for the projects, or it can be harmful to your own mental health. So you are unhappy about the organizational culture, you can't collaborate with the others, so your performance isn't good. And this can harm the company's mission, the company's goal, and also can harm yourself because you are unhappy and you're not fulfilling your personal goals as well. Thank you for this question.
Thank you, Tasnim. There's a question for me, apparently. So you talked about mindful communication. So what does mindful communication mean to you, and how do you incorporate into your daily interactions, both personally and professionally? So as I said, mindful communication is a practice of being fully present and attentive to others, both personally and professionally. It involves active listening and emotional intelligence. So both personally and professionally, mindful communications foster better relationship and resolve conflicts more effectively. So in personal relationship, it enhances connection and understanding. In a professional setting, it improves teamwork and reduces misunderstanding and leads to more productive and harmonious collaborations. Hope this answered your question. So there's another question. How can we manage cultural diversity in nonverbal communication?
I'll answer that question. I think managing cultural diversity and nonverbal communication, it involves being aware and being respectful towards the cultural differences that exist in how people express themselves through body language. Again, gestures, facial expressions, and other nonverbal cues that we discussed earlier. I guess you should have cultural awareness. You should study and learn about the non-verbal norms and practices of the other cultures that you interact with. An important one is avoid stereotyping. Don't make assumptions and stereotypes about how someone from a specific culture acts and stuff. Active listening. You should pay close attention to nonverbal cues during interactions. And I guess just adjust, be flexible, and be willing to adapt your own nonverbal communication style to make others feel comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin, for your answer. So I think this is the end of our webinar. Thank you for joining us on this journey of self-improvement. And remember, effective communication is the key to unlocking a world of possibilities. Thank you, guys, for joining us today. Goodbye.